Hey everybody, good morning. It's Kathy Klotz-Guest. I'm doing a replay of Yes and Brand Show. I talked a little bit about this on my Keeping It Human page. We had a little bit of wonky stuff going on with Be Live. What are you gonna do? But happy Friday morning. I want to share with you a couple of findings that I think are really important. If you work with teams, I work with teams, probably many of you work with teams. You are people. We have a lot in common. I breathe air, you breathe air. But I was doing a video cast just not too long ago talking about this issue, and I really want to share the findings. I wrote a piece on LinkedIn, and it got some good conversation going. If you're working with teams, there are three big reasons why people don't innovate, and there's a lot of reasons, but I want to share with you the big three buckets that they tend to fall into. And I'd love to know your feedback. I'd love to know what you think. I thought this might be helpful, so I'm going to share this out. And of course, just a reminder, most of my Yes and Brand Show vids will be done from the Keeping It Human Facebook page. So you can go there and get handy dandy reminders. All right, so let's go to town here. There are three big reasons, and that explain, I think, the majority of why people hold back on ideas. And this is just from my years. Yes, I manage teams in high tech. People forget that. Yes, I am a comic, and yes, I have 20 years doing stage work. But I also came out of high tech, and I was a senior director of marketing, and I ran teams. I know, crazy, right? I'm a nerd with a couple of graduate degrees. So who likes to have fun? So the big reason, the number one reason why people are holding back ideas and they are not innovating is because they don't trust you. And it comes in three different things. They don't trust the culture and environment, they don't trust their boss, and they don't trust their colleagues. Now let me break this down for you. Research does show that about half the time people are holding back, it's one of those reasons. Hey JS, they're holding back because of one of those reasons of lack of trust. People don't trust their boss. If they give an idea to their boss doesn't champion the idea, doesn't up-level the idea, doesn't give credit for the idea, doesn't do anything with the idea, and champion it up the food chain to management. I don't trust most people either, JS. But the other thing is people don't trust the culture. If you've got a culture that says one thing, that says fail, take risks, and then people are kind of ostracized if the idea does not work out, then you've got a big hole in your culture of trust. People don't believe you. Nobody wants to walk the plank and be the first to test a theory. So if you don't have social proof, if the management is not walking the talk about taking risks and then rewarding risks, even though the outcome might not have materialized, people aren't going to offer to take those risks. So a lot of times what happens is people just don't trust the culture. They don't trust the boss. And then finally, people don't trust their colleagues. If you've got judgy colleagues that will judge an idea before that idea is fully fleshed out, if you've got people that are yes-butting each other, and we talk a lot about that, hence the Yes and Brand Show, if they're not willing to hear an idea and invest in an idea before making a judgment, people stop trying to come up with ideas. If you've got colleagues that want to vie for competing ideas versus work together and collaborate, well, that's a hostile environment for moving ideas forward. People aren't going to take the risks. So trust is the number one reason why people hold back. Again, just to summarize, trust of the culture. They don't trust the culture to walk the talk. Social proof. Management, give social proof. If you manage a team, give social proof at the team level. They don't trust their boss. People don't trust their boss. The number one reason people leave companies, it's not the company, it's the boss. So the boss has more sway into whether people have a great experience at work or a crappy experience at work. So if you're making people feel crappy, not happy, people aren't going to be giving you their best. It's just that simple. And then finally, hey guys, finally, people don't trust their colleagues. So you have to work on social proof, making it okay for people to fail, making it okay so that you're reinforcing the process of innovation and risk-taking and not necessarily just rewarding the outcome. All right, that's the first reason. And again, half the reasons why people hold back are trust. Now, the second bucket of why people don't take risks, hey Vlad, hey JS. JS says institutions and businesses have a modern veneer. Yeah. It's true. We're highly matrix organizations of the industrial age, and we need to completely change management. I completely agree with you. And it's an industrial complex running management, and that the times have changed. You're right. The second reason why, major bucket, why people do not innovate and they won't share their ideas is story. Of course. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again, story drives innovation. They're inextricably linked. You can't have one without the other. You know, you can give a management objective, for example, that says, hey, next couple of quarters, we need 10% more on the bottom line. But that's not an inspiring story because it doesn't tell people how and what their big goal is. Now, instead, if I say, hey, we're Fitbit, and everything we do is about empowering the individual to take control of their own health. So every innovation, every design, every customer service experience has to advance that goal, allowing individuals and empowering them to take control to improve their own health. That's huge. Now you know what your objective is, your big why story, and you know how you should be headed. It's an organizing story heads everybody the same direction. Super important. I'm not inspired with 10% bottom line ROI. It might be important, but that's an objective, not a story. So unless you have a big story that drives everybody the same direction and makes people feel like they know what their goal is every day, from marketing to design to product to sales, there's no organizing principle. So if your story's fuzzy and people don't know what they're doing, you can't get traction out of people. You're not going to get the best ideas. So you've got to have an inspiring story that clarifies and moves everybody in the same direction. And I've talked about this before. I've been called into companies where there was no organizing story, and everybody would be like, we don't even have a mission statement. We don't know what our goal is. I always point to Yahoo. Yahoo doesn't have a story. Is it related? Absolutely. You can't have financial viability and strategic clarity when you have no story clarity. What's their story? Well, that's the point. Nobody knows. You don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. Yahoo doesn't know. So I think it is, JS, you bring up a good point. People, objectives, strategies, and tools. Completely agree. People first. Why do you do it? What's your story? Trust. And again, a lack of story exacerbates the first problem of trust. It leads to a lack of trust. Super, super important. And I've seen this happen all too many times when I go into companies and they don't have a clear story. People are like, Kathy, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing because I don't know what our North Star is. What's our strategic GPS if we don't have an objective story that clarifies and guides everything we do? Big, big problem. All right, the third bucket that I've seen personally up close and personal about why people hold back is tools and process. Really, really simple. When people hold back, sometimes it's because what happens to their idea? It can be a couple things. It can be if you create too many layers of hierarchy and approval to get people to do something with an idea, they're not going to do anything. If you put a lot of roadblocks in their way, I remember being at a company that for little small things, I had to get permission. Well, guess what? I didn't do permission all the time. I'd get forgiveness. And that usually worked because a lot of the ideas worked. But that was risky. A lot of people who aren't me and wired like me don't take those risks. But over time, that's a really hard thing to ask people to do. So you got to remove the roadblocks to small stuff. Now, the bigger things, yeah, maybe an idea for innovation doesn't fit with the current objectives and you have to do something with the idea. But where does that idea go? Does it sit in a parking lot of ideas? Does it go to an idea cemetery, which would be sad? Do you ever explain? Is there a feedback loop where you explain to people why their ideas didn't get traction so they know that, hey, your idea is a good idea, but it's not viable right now because of resources. We've got constrained resources and it doesn't fit with this next couple quarters. But we're going to review the idea at the end of the year. So have some kind of feedback loop for people so they know that A, their ideas are being reviewed, B, there's traction, C, they understand the priority of ideas versus just everything going dark and it's a black box and they never hear back on an idea. You need to let employees know that you care, that their ideas will be reviewed, and here's the process. When you don't have a clear process, people are like, why bother? How many times have you been in a company where they gave you a survey, HR gave you a survey, and then never did a single thing to change the things you suggested management should do? Black box. Well, if you do have a black box management style, you can just kiss goodbye. A lot of innovation people will simply stop trying because they believe that their ideas aren't being looked at and their ideas aren't going to be vetted and commercialized and nobody gives a crap. Or worst case scenario, management takes an idea and doesn't give credit and enablement to the team that maybe generated it. So there needs to be process. And I don't like tons of process, but I'm with JS. People come first, objectives, and then very finally at the very end, you have to have that, hey, Frankie. So at the very end, you need to have process. So those are the 3 reasons why people don't innovate. Super, super, super important. Can't emphasize it enough. Trust, storytelling, and then thirdly, lack of systems and process. People will not take risks if they don't know what's going to happen to those ideas. So those are controllable things. And I believe that every organization, if you're working with people, you can take steps to give the social proof to make them believe that they have a voice. So it's really important to do. JS, what are you saying to me? Companies are run by legal departments. Yep. I think sadly that's true. They are, but it's interesting. I don't know if Intuit still does it, but Intuit used to do something really interesting. They used to have failure parties, and what they would do is they would celebrate a failure. And here's the thing that I really loved about it is that they were reinforcing the risk-taking process and the learning, and saying, you know what, sometimes we're going to take market risks and things aren't going to work out, but we want our employees to take risks, come up with ideas. Smart risks, not foolhardy risks, but smart risks. And we reward the process because we know that the process is important. And if you only celebrate an outcome when it's successful, you're shortchanging the process. And I love that concept that Intuit used to do. And I remember interviewing a manager over there years ago, and he would tell me about these failure parties. And I thought that's the smartest way to show social proof internally that, look, you're not going to be made to walk the plank if an idea is a stinker. No one's going to pillory you in the public square and throw tomatoes at you. Because then nobody's going to innovate. The next meeting you have where you're like, hey, anybody got any good ideas? Everyone's going to just look at each other like, I ain't going to do that. I ain't going to come forward with a good idea. So you have to create an environment that like walks the talk. And I think that's the biggest thing that like a lot of companies don't do well. Innovation is a buzzword. Hypocrisy is palpable. I mean, Dilbert it spawned that hypocrisy is so big that it's created more cartoons and is responsible for launching, Scott Adams' career. So if you want it to be more than lip service and you want it to be more than just a buzzword, you're going to have to prove it. And that's the social proof. You're right, JS. You can't change everything. But when I was managing teams in high tech, I couldn't always control what the idiots above me did. Couldn't control that. But what I could control is my team. So when I was managing teams, I could control the environment and the microclimate that I created in my team. And I could reward people in my team for generating ideas and coming up with ideas. And that's what I did. I tried to make it a safe space for people to come up with new ideas and to try new things. And if it was small things, I would tell them, you don't need permission. Just go do it. You need a customer, you see customer service change you want to make, go do it, test it, let me know. You see a small design thing that's not going to give scope creep and totally derail us on our timeline to get the product out the door, go do it. So I tended to be of the permission versus, I didn't wait for people to get forgiveness. But that's how I manage. Yes. Having to unlock or have massive wait states. Yeah, it is a problem. Somebody needs there to say yes. But again, I think you can also empower employees to do little things. Just even little improvements like, I was at Target the other day and a woman in front of me didn't have her card, her Target card. She's a Target member and she didn't have it. And what I loved is that the cashier was empowered right there at the point of sale to say, you know what? You should have your card with you. We're not supposed to, but here's the thing. I'm going to give you this one-time discount. I'll give you the 5%, even though you don't have it, because I want you to have a good experience. And the woman was appreciative. And empowering your frontline people on customer service to make small decisions like that, instead of, hey, I got to go get a manager, and then hold the line up for 15 minutes while you chase a manager down to get approval. Like, decentralize the small little things. 5% is not enough to hold up the line, create a bad experience for everybody. So on the small things, I think, JS, you have to empower people and say yes. Yes, and brand. You have to say yes and give people permission to innovate on the small things. So I'm with you. I'm with you. And I think that's the difference between a company that gets it and a company that doesn't get it, is say yes to the small stuff. If it doesn't require a lot of resources and time and doesn't derail your product and all that other stuff, you've got to decentralize. You've got to say yes. I think that's really the issue. Hey, Nick. Hey, Nick. We got a legal beagle. We got a legal beagle with us. We were just talking about, I think JS, actually, Nick was just saying how much he loves lawyers and how lawyers are not responsible for hanging up innovation. I believe that's what he was saying. I just want to clarify. I think he was saying that he loves lawyers. Yeah. I'm definitely going to put words in JS's mouth. So there you go. That's what I love to do. But yeah, no, those are really all good issues that you bring up, JS, and they're really important issues. But yeah, I don't know. You don't practice. You don't practice. Yeah, I almost went to law school. I did. I almost went to law school, and then I bolted. Literally, I was at UC Berkeley, and I bolted, and I said, nah, it's not for me. But I did get my MBA, and I have a master's in communication from Stanford. So I did go do the grad school thing. I just realized law school was not for me. I'm not a technical letter of the law. I'm really more of a case by case basis kind of gal. Like, I'm really kind of I would be the one in the courtroom going, doesn't matter, Your Honor. I mean, if we look at it, sure, prima facie, the rule was broken. But really? I mean, shouldn't we be looking at the case, the merits of the case? That's what I would be, that person. So I realized law school was just not for me. But yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. I'm the, come on, just this one time. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I think legal does get to JS's point. I don't want to put words in your mouth, JS, but since I've already done that, I'm going to continue. I think you're right. I think sometimes risk mitigation, and when legal gets involved in innovation issues, it can hold things up. You're totally right. But legal doesn't always know how to innovate, right? I've worked at startups. I was a senior director of marketing at a company where patents were really important because IP was a big part of the strategy, especially in silicon development, where IP, it's a very IP driven business. Whoever has, architecture, and IP drives a good chunk of contracts because you're customizing IP development for your customers. So, you're creating, silicon and stuff for each particular customer. And so I've seen this get really weird, but at the same time, legal doesn't understand the technology, and they don't know how it works. And if they get entangled in it, it really creates so many problems. And the best thing to do is let, at least in the one startup I was at, where I was a senior marketing director, I had to get involved so many times and get legal to back off, because the PhDs who knew material science and conductive properties of silicon knew better. And they were saying, okay, legal, you got to back off just a little bit. So I found myself having to adjudicate and get involved at really nitty gritty levels. But it's Nick, you're right. I mean, legal can be a big impediment to innovation. And I'm showing my nerd cards, but yeah. It can totally be an impediment, but I understand why they do get involved, especially when you do have certain industries that are so IP driven. And like I say, in silicon, it's all patents, right? It's very much IP driven at that point. JS, yeah, when a business needs to have lengthy dialogues after the fact, I could just show this, right? No, I can't. I'm not going to be live. To get back with an opinion, it hurts. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Legal, yeah. Well, and legal gets involved in a lot of stuff because legal is all risk mitigation, and that's I get it. There's a place for that. That's such a place for that. But yeah, and there is a place for that. But I think that has to be really balanced, because when legal gets involved in technology they do not understand, it gets really tricky. It gets really, unless you happen to have a legal department that are experts at the technology. And sometimes that does happen. You know, we've had at some of the companies I've worked, we've had engineers turned lawyers, and they actually had enough understanding of the technology to be able to say, you know what, maybe we need to back off a little bit. And then you can have some advocates, but yeah. Yeah, legal's isolated. True. But legal, in my opinion, isn't as big a barrier to innovation in a lot of industries as much as management is. And it can be legal management, but it tends to be management, because management tends to operate on a permission first. And that's not easy to get. And take legal out of the equation, and you still have to go up the flagpole and get permission. And try getting permission, when you've got, you know, finite resources and you've already got 3 or 4 things in production, and you're trying to get a product out on time and try to get attention. There's too many hurdles for people to then go innovate customer service, or go innovate a small little spec in the product design. And these are the places where I think management has to let go and say, you know what, you know the product best. If your product development team at very incremental cost but huge utility sees that a feature has to be in there before it goes out the door, they have that right to make that call. And I think this is where, you know, I've had to fight these battles. I've had to fight these battles many, many times in tech. Absolutely, no question. I could write a dossier, but I'm not gonna. Hey, Sumeda. Hey. You're seeing legal departments that get integrated with creative, and we see amazing benefits. Yeah. And legal gets less tied out. Yeah. Well, and sometimes, you know, if you know you're going to have a problem with legal, it's really important to get them involved up front. If you think you're going to have an impediment, and educating them and getting them on board with something is really, really important. Yeah, you're right. Especially when it comes to marketing, there are things. Product's one thing, but especially when it comes to marketing and marketing campaigns, and you're doing something like humor. And my friend Sumeda, who's a comic and also a lawyer, is on here. Hey, Sumeda. As somebody who worked a lot with lawyers internally, but somebody who is an MBA and a marketer, there were many times I wanted to try a campaign, and, you know, legal got very nervous about it. And the way that I got around it, here's how I got around it, is that I would go get feedback from our best clients. I'd pick a couple of our ideal best clients, and I'd get feedback, and I'd get proof of concept. And if they loved it, then I would be able to go back to management and say, look, I've already run this campaign by a couple of people, and they think it's a great idea. So if a couple of our best ideal customers are saying it's okay, I think we actually should be designing everything we do for our ideal clients. Let's do this. And I got permission that way. So sometimes when I'd get a no from management, I would go around them. I'd do an end run. Here's what I did. My little sports analogy for today. I'm pretty proud of myself because I don't like football. I did an end run around them, and I would go directly to the client, and I'd say, what do you think? And if I can get support and championship from our best clients, even if the company wouldn't listen to me, they would listen to the clients. And that worked for me. Here's my little secret. That worked for me a lot of times. And then they'd look at me and go, okay, Klotz-Guest, but this better work. And a good chunk of times, not all, but a good chunk of times it did work. And so divide and conquer is what I did. Nick. All right. So some of the AI and TAR tools will hopefully reduce that time lag. Yeah. Well, hopefully. I hope it does. The main thing I think is, and you're right, JS, though, is that I think legal has to be less risk mitigation and more risk embracing. And it feels like it's at odds fundamentally with what legal does. And I don't know, Sumeda, if you're on here, what you think. If you're still on here, my friend Sumeda, who is my buddy, she's a comic and a lawyer. I think fundamentally legal has to understand that they're not at odds. Legal has to enable innovation and get out of the way of innovation. But I think sometimes their risk mitigation strategies do get in the way, and they do need to lighten up a little bit. And they need to understand that the number one goal of a company, yes, is sales, but it cannot do that. It cannot do that if it's not willing to take occasional risks. So it's got to be, I think legal has to figure out how to work more in an entrepreneurial fashion with other parts of the organization. I think that's a real issue. A 6-week lag with one client. Yeah. I had the same thing. I've had, not internally, but now being on the consulting side, being on the entrepreneurial side, I have had this issue where, in fact, one company that I will not name, I sent them a contract, the boilerplate contract, and it would come back completely changed. And we did this dance back and forth. And then I changed it. Finally, I just called them out and I was like, you keep changing every indemnification clause. You guys don't act like you're not doing it, and don't act like I don't see it. Right? I've done enough contracts in my day to know that you keep changing it. Instead of talking to me, you keep changing it. Don't change it. So I've had that conversation. If you make legal part of the sales department, it will change things. Yes. If you know that you're going to upfront have an objective that will probably raise the red flag for sales, I've done a preemptive strike. What I've done is I've gone, when I was working in companies, I would go directly to legal early on and say, I think this contract is going to come due. I think it's coming down the pike very quickly, and I need to give you a heads up on why we need to sign it. And you're going to have to expedite it, and here's why. If we don't, we're going to lose the sale to another company. Secondly, we are designing for them, which means they own the IP or we co-own it together, but you cannot own the IP. The reason they're coming to us is that they want us to develop something unique for them. So if we're going to resell that technology, then they have no unique IP advantage, and we will lose the contract. So I would give them a heads up. I know I'm getting geeky here, but I would give them a heads up, and as long as they knew it was coming down the pike, I would go to the lawyers that got it, and I would pick my friends, and I would go to the lawyers that I knew would expedite the contract for me. And that's how I did it. So Kathy relied on lots of times forgiveness versus permission. Kathy did end runs around management and went directly to the customer. Because if the customer feedback supports you, management will listen. And then thirdly, when I knew I was going to have a roadblock and I anticipated it, I did a preemptive strike. I went directly to the legal department and told them what was coming down the pike, why, and I advocated why they should expedite the contract, and here's why. And more often than not, that worked. Did it work every time? No. But even oxygen only has a 99% approval rating, so it's not 100% because, it burns in large amounts. But it worked for me. I was a proactive employee, Nick. I really was. But I was also tasked with running a team, and I had everything to lose. And so as a senior director of marketing, I had profit and loss ownership. And this is why when I consult with companies, I know so well what they're dealing with because I've been on that side. And when I am tasked as a marketer running a marketing budget, I'm tasked with growing product sales by a certain amount, it incentivizes me to be proactive and to look out for my team. And I was very protective about giving them the leeway they needed to be able to get products out when they needed to. And if it meant running interference with legal, guess who did it? Me, this guy. I'd put on my flak jacket and go to legal. But I'm also very relationship oriented. Hey, Lisa. But I'm very relationship oriented. So I think what worked for me, everybody, is because I built relationships and I would advocate for people and I would advocate for my team. And I stood up for my team and I said, this is why we have to add that to the product. This is why we need leeway. And because I was very much about protecting the objectives of the company, but giving my team the best leeway and backing up my team, I think more often than not, I got yeses. More often than not, but I was very, very hands-on. I was really a hands-on kind of manager. So a lot of the things that I'm telling you today, I'm sharing with you are things that I saw personally speaking up front in personal, in running teams in corporate. So this was a lot of my learning and a lot of the feedback I'd get from customers and from my own people and from my own employees who I managed. All right. Yeah, these are great comments, everybody. Hey, Lisa. All right. Oh my gosh. We got Jonathan. Jonathan's awesome. We got JS. We got Nick. We got Manuel. Hola, Manuel. ¿Cómo estás, mi amigo? Buenas noches, because I think it's nighttime your time. Lisa, we got JS. You're saying, JS, we tend to have somewhat level playing fields. Yeah. That's just it. And I think that's one of the reasons why startups are so innovative and big companies are not. It's too much process. So I was at a company, the same silicon startup, and I was running marketing, and I saw this happen, an actual thing happen where two PhDs who knew more than the legal department, because the legal department had, two people as legal counsel, and neither one of them had an engineering background. So two of our best PhDs who had, I don't know how many patents on, between them, had an idea that was really, really important for the company, and there was nobody to champion it internally. So and I kept trying to champion the idea for them. And even if not getting it acted on immediately, I tried to say, look, guys, we need to park this idea somewhere and come back to it. It's a really important idea. And I believe in this idea. And after about a year banging my head against the wall, the management wouldn't do anything because you had a lot of, just people who didn't understand engineering. What ended up happening is these two PhDs left, took their idea with them, got funded. And now these two PhDs run a company. I'm not going to name names. They now run a company and they have patents on this new idea, and they've got clients, and they've got working prototypes and beta clients that are paying beta clients, and they've got patents that could have gone to the originating company, but for the fact that this company was pretty myopic and wouldn't even look at the innovation. So I've seen more innovation leaks where people have left and gone and started their own thing, which is great for them, but maybe bad for the originating company because they didn't enable innovation within their corporate structure. And they could have, and they didn't. And that's a really big issue. So thanks for bringing that up, JS. Yeah, it's a really big problem. We want to keep innovation. If we're tasked with innovation at our company, we want to keep the innovation in-house as much as possible. I think that's super, super important. So good question. Good comment. All right, everybody, this is good conversation. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, if anybody has any comments or questions, I'd love to hear more. You can keep commenting here. Again, I just wanted to share with you a couple things. Yeah, everyone's trying to monetize Snapchat, but I always like to joke, and I said this to Joel the other day. Snapchat was by far the best social investment that I never made because my audience wasn't there and I couldn't justify being there. So I like that. I think that's a great comment. All right, everybody. I hope this helps. I just wanted to share really my learnings and the things that I know about just from all the years I spent in companies. And these are the kinds of things that I try to work with companies now now that I run my own business, to try to take down these barriers and try to take away these things, these silos, and these things that get in the way of innovation. And storytelling, trust, and lack of systems are three of those things. So I'm going to post a link to my LinkedIn article here. And of course, when I work with companies, I bring all that experience and I bring my improvisational tools with me. Design tools, marketing tools, and my 20 years of improv tools to help kind of bring down those barriers. But yeah. Nice not to hear the word improv for an hour. Yeah. Well, here's the thing I always remember, and I've said this many times, and I said this, and I think Mike Ganino liked my quote, and then he used it in a presentation. And I've said this so many times, and here it is. No one has ever called me and said, hey, Kathy, my improv is broken. No one has ever called me, and it's in my book. I write this. It's never happened. Improv is a set of tools. Yes, I'm going to bring it up, JS. I'm going to bring it up. Improv is a set of tools. Improv will help people work more collaboratively together, but it's not the end goal. We're trying to help companies take down barriers and be more successful. And improv tools are just a set of tools. They're not the outcome. So does that work for you, JS? I think I did pretty good there. So I think it's okay to say improv. It's just not the headline. It's not the main headline. It's kind of the subtopic. But There you go. See, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, you can, and folks, I get teased for not doing this enough. So hold on, bear with me. Everybody teases me. They're like, Kathy, you don't promote your book enough. So here it is. Stop boring me. All right, here's the book. How do you get rid of business boring in your storytelling and your content? And happen to use some improv tools. That is my book. So, all right, everybody, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad you joined me today. Normally I do these from my Keeping It Human page, and I hope you'll join me there. But I love these robust discussions. And no, I haven't been bored by you, JS. I always love JS. You're going to have to come on the next one, JS. I want to bring you on. I just, I'm not using Be Live right now, so I'm going to have to do that next time with Be Live here and bring you on and we'll chat. Yeah. All right, everybody. Later on today, just in case you are interested, I will be doing a video later for LinkedIn, and I'll be talking about bad marketing, bad marketers, when good marketing goes oh so bad, and why Kathy needs to put most of these marketers in a timeout corner where they belong. So I'm about to go mom old school on these marketers that practice bad marketing. All right, everybody, have a happy weekend. We will see you next week. Again, Yes Ann Brand Show. It will be, is usually broadcast on the Keeping It Human channel, but I wanted to do a special version here on my personal wall. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.